So this webinar today is going to be focused on the title of Driving More Responsive Governance. And we're going to show today with you, we're going to show you 3 new features that we recently released, all with the goal of, as a local government, being more responsive to your community needs. So we're going to be talking about some specific solutions called the Community Monitor, Auto Insights, and our Inspiration Hub. So today it's going to be with the two of us, with Aline and myself. We're the co-founders of GoVocal. I am the CEO and Aline is the regional director of the Benelux. And we started GoVocal now about 9 years ago, previously under the name of Citizen Lab, with one big goal: the mission of strengthening our participatory democracy and helping local governments to better involve residents in local decision-making. And the people who know us, they might also know the fun fact about us, that we're not only running a mini democracy at work, but also at home with our triplets. So Aline, maybe you also quickly want to say hi.
Hello, everyone. Welcome.
So if you're not familiar with us yet, then I'll give you just like the 1-minute presentation of who we are. So GoVocal, today we work with about 500 local governments worldwide, especially in Europe and in North America. You see some of our clients, some of the cities that we work with here on the map. And one particular thing that we're proud of is a recent recognition from People Powered. People Powered, they are an independent team that looked at all the participation platforms out there. There are over 30 platforms internationally, and they scored us 100 out of 100 on the product quality and features. So there was a really exciting recognition for all the work that we've put into the development of our platform that we're keen to show with you today. Now, I want to take you first back to our mission. Our mission at GoVocal is to make public decision-making more inclusive, more streamlined, and more responsive. So what does that mean? Well, we make sure that more people are being reached, but not just more. We also want to make sure that, you know, the diversity of the backgrounds and of the people being involved, that is more diverse. We want to help local governments streamline the process of participation, make it more efficient to collaborate internally, and make it actually easier to set up processes. And then the third one, being more responsive. It's not only about gathering more input from residents, it's about how do we turn then into actions, into actionable insights to inform our decision making. And obviously, it's that third piece here that we're going to zoom in on today. Over to you, Aline.
So maybe quickly about what we are at GoVocal. So GoVocal is a central hub for all your participation engagement projects. On the front, we have a complete participation or engagement toolbox to engage your community. We'll show you this in a minute. And then at the back end, we have a whole management system to manage projects, manage your community input, close the feedback loop, and then eventually also have decision-making features such as our AI sense-making tool to turn all this input into reports and eventually support decisions. So we really go from engaging over managing to deciding. These are 4 reasons why governments love working with us. The first one is this complete toolbox. It's built for a hybrid, so we very much believe in the complementarity between everything that is happening online, but also offline. So we've built multiple tools to also incorporate other types of inputs. We hear that our platform is very easy to use and configure. That's also one of the reasons why we've got this people-powered recognition, not only for users, but also for admins. So it's really as important for civil servants to love working with a participation tool. Then we have our AI sense-making, which we will talk about today. And then last but not least, we also truly have a global community. We can already see it in the comments that we have people from Canada, from the UK, from Europe present, and we really want to foster that exchanging of expertise amongst the councils and governments that we work with. Here is the overview of our toolbox. We structured this on the IAP2 spectrum of participation. And the higher you go up on this spectrum, the more decision-making power you give to your residents or constituents. I'll not go into all these methods, but I want to highlight a few. First of all, the consultation the information is, of course, key. The second one is consulting your residents. Here we have launched a new feature called Echo to also incorporate voice-based input. So whenever you organize physical meetings, you can capture that input, then also analyze it in the GoVocal platform. Paper-based input is also interesting, but we already had that one. Then on involving gathering feedback from your community, we have launched a community monitor. So that's one feature that we'll dive more into today. On Collaborate, we have kind of things that we've been always working on, ideation, mapping, but still, of course, very important. And then on Empowering, we have features such as participatory budgeting, where you can let residents decide on how a budget is spent. So we just wanted to highlight here that whatever kind of project, topic, method you have in mind, we have the toolbox to really support all of these online engagement methods, and you can mix and match depending on your topic. So here are some of the cases we want to highlight. Today we'll really go again into the product and into new features, but of course we are doing this to support policy and projects all around the globe. So we do want to highlight some of the cities and governments that we work with. It's also important to highlight that we work with this community of more than 500 governments. We meet on a monthly basis in community sessions, but we've also brought all these 25,000 projects into an inspiration hub, and that's also something that we will show later. So the 5 different topics that we work on, sorry, just one more, Ritze, is strategy and budgeting, planning and placemaking. So those are the 2 main ones that we work with. We also do a lot on climate. Participatory budgeting is one that keeps on coming back. And then, let's say, more democratic innovation is also something we work on quite often. But so now the first case that we want to share is the London Borough of Newham. We see quite some UK councils here, so you might know this kind of project or process that is called people-powered places. It's something that is happening every year, and they let the community shape first local priorities together and then link it to funding of projects. So it's a truly inclusive process where they also use residents to set these priorities and then use the assembly to decide on the projects. In total, 1.6 million has already been invested in more than 150 local projects. And 2 kind of impact numbers that we like to highlight is the number of project managers that are actually active on the GoVocal platform. More than 200 project managers from Newham use the platform. So it's really important that it's structured for their way of working. And also particularly for this project, more than 89% of the residents feel more connected to their neighborhoods after this participation project. So it shows the impact of the tool. Then secondly, the city of Vienna, they work on climate. So they have designed their different climate plans per neighborhood. Interesting to highlight here is the hybrid engagement approach. So they really combined it with more than 50 in-person events. They have also engaged more than 10,000 people on this. And the real impact that the platform helped them make was the time spent on, or the saving of time spent on data analysis. They saved more than 60% thanks to our insights feature, which we will also dive into today. And then last but not least, St. Louis, Missouri, in the US. I know that we also have some North American cities and governments present here today. This was a really interesting project. I'll not go too deep into it, but the Rams moved out of town. They had a settlement fund that they decided to spend together with the residents. So it was a huge budget, $250 million. And yeah, they engaged more than 16,000 people on the key priority areas. And now it's being transformed into a continuous process of agenda setting. So these were just some cases studies to inspire.
Thank you, Aline. Thanks for the introduction. Let's now talk a little more about the topic of the day, which is responsiveness. And I want to start first by looking at what have we heard from local governments, from councils, as we talked about how do you actually inform your decisions? How do you keep track of the sentiments and the needs from your community? And we have identified two challenges. The first one is the analysis bottleneck. It's one thing to collect data, to collect input, ideas, survey responses, and often we're talking about hundreds, if not thousands of responses. But then it's another thing to make sense out of all that data. It still requires pretty advanced skills. It requires resources, it requires time. So often that is a reason why, you're not coming to full, let's say, fruition of, all the input that you captured, because the analysis itself is still pretty bothersome. And then secondly, more specifically about how do you keep track of the pulse from your residents? So beyond project engagement, we see that, there's already a bunch of local governments, many local governments, especially in North America, to a lesser extent in the UK and Europe, I would say, but we are already tracking resident satisfaction and trust often. Now, two challenges here. One is that often the data is very fragmented. There might be in different data pools from different ways of engagement. And two, often this has been done, that resident satisfaction tracking as part of an annual survey or periodical survey, but it's very difficult to constitute a true picture over time of how that sentiment has changed. Now, before I continue, I would like to actually launch a quick poll. And I would like to ask you, are you today tracking resident satisfaction? And then a second question on, if yes, how are you doing that today? So I'll give you just 30 seconds to get a sense in this room of who is already tracking resident sentiment today. Give another 10 seconds. It's interesting to see we started off on like many no's, but now we're getting to 50-50 roughly. So, all right, so results are in. So we've got 44% saying yes, I'm tracking, 56% saying no. So that's pretty balanced. And if yes, how are we doing that today? We have about 86% saying I'm doing that with sporadic surveys, yearly or less. 29% that is doing it quarterly or more often than that. And 57% saying that they are using a social listening tool today. So that's really interesting. So I think it shows clearly that there is already practice in place here, but there's different ways of doing it. So thank you very much for sharing that. That's interesting. Now, here are the observations that we want to share from talking to local governments and councils. What we are hearing is those three challenges. The first one is, as I already alluded to, data is often locked in silos because you might be engaging through in person, you might be receiving comments through email, you might be going out for street interviews, canvassing, your digital platform, website form. So there's all sorts of ways for residents to engage, but often the data is not combined. And more often than that, with understaffed teams, which is not too uncommon in government land, it's very difficult to actually take the time to sift through all those different signals that you're getting and sifting through that noise. So that is number one. The second one is often local governments are missing the pulse to keep track of fast changing needs just because they are not tracking resident satisfaction. And the cost of that is that you're not really hearing some of the more silent voices. You're not really noticing shifts in sentiment. So it's difficult to correlate some of your actions to what's been the feedback and the outcomes for the community. Why is this also beneficial? Well, it helps you to detect problems before they become more serious complaints and before they will cost you in trust. And when we saw that when local governments are actually doing resident satisfaction tracking, then often it's a sporadical poll or a survey that they're running, but that it's at very discrete moments in time. That's often a one-off, and it's also fairly costly. That you might want to engage a consultant, and that easily, it eats up a lot of budget. So with that said, and with those observations in mind, we have been thinking about how could we do this better. And the solution that we came up with, or one of the solutions today that we want to show you, is the community monitor, a more continuous feedback system to actually spot new trends in trust or satisfaction before they potentially turn into complaints, to help you streamline the process and be able to track the sentiment over time, and to also consolidate, really the tools and keeping it in one central platform. So I'm going to hand it over to Aline to tell us a little more how it works, and she will also give us a quick demo.
Yes, so I'll share my screen and I'll show you this feature on our platform. Okay, screen share. So you should be able to see my screen now. All right, let me put this on full screen. So we are on the platform of the city of Greenville. The city doesn't exist, but still they want to know what their community cares about. And as we just said, monitoring social media or running your own surveys can be costly and resource intensive. So that's why we have launched our community monitor. And that's what I want to show you today. So this is the homepage of a community engagement platform. Very often, or like more than 70% of residents will use this platform on their mobile phone. So it's also all mobile responsive. And you can see the community monitor in action right here. So it's a survey that you can put very central on your platform. And also it can be often a pop-up that appears. You can decide how often it appears, but that kind of nudges people to fill out this survey. And the CTA here is really helping us serving you better. So if you take this survey, you will see like this very kind of easy to use poll with these emojis. The first question is, or the first kind of topic area is quality of life. So I can say, okay, the city is a nice place to live in. The overall sense of safety is fair because as a woman, I feel less safe when it's dark. Access to park is good. Affordable housing is poor. Employment and economic advancement opportunities are good. So that's the kind of first topic that we poll. The next topic is service delivery. So this is really, overall, let's say, quality of service by the city. Again, good, fair, cleanliness, poor, could be better. Always allowing people to share why, optionally. And then the third one is governance and trust. Again, this could be quite good, but maybe tax money spent fair. These are all questions that we have detailed by default, but you can also change this and add other questions. So then I want to submit. And there's also a unique identifier code that could be relevant in some markets. So this is how, as a resident, I fill out this survey, I participate. It could be, seeing this through a pop-up, but you can also share this link directly in some of your other communication channels. Now, what's really interesting now is how do you actually get insights from this data, from this polling. So for this, I will log into the back office of the platform. And if I go to the back office, I will move to the community monitor tab. And here I can have an overview of all of the data. And so as Wietse already explained, this is a quarterly monitor. This is dummy data, so it assumes that we have been doing this for the past 3 quarters. And you get, first of all, an overall health score, and then you get a score per topic. Now, what is really interesting is if you can go into the trends that this community monitor can identify. So I want to highlight a few trends that I'm seeing in this particular case. First of all, we can see that service delivery has had a dip. So it went down in Q1 and now it's been back up. So if I scroll to service delivery, I could see, for example, why. It could be probably mostly because of city taxes and fees and street and public spaces. And also what's remarkable is the overall sense of safety. And what's interesting, if people leave comments, that there's an automatic AI summary. So you can really see why people are not feeling so safe within the city. So it could be certain areas that are seen as sketchy, but on the other hand, friendliness kind of contributes to a good level of safety. So this gives you very interesting insights and kind of a snapshot of how is our community feeling over time. Now you can totally customize this. I'll not go into the details, but if I go into what we call builder of the platform, you can add questions, you can change questions. So depending on what you want to poll your community about, you can change this community monitor. Now, the last thing that is important is the reporting of the community monitor, because of course you're getting these responses in, but you want to know on a quarterly basis how people are thinking. And the GoVocal platform is building these reports automatically. So if you go into this report, you can see automatically like, okay, what are the different scores on the parameters? And you can also add these AI insights that are kind of summarizing what people are saying. So this is in a nutshell, the community monitor. Please let me know if there's any questions about this feature, and we will probably take them at the end.
All right, awesome. I just took over again, I think, Aline.
I'm still seeing you. Yeah.
All right. So second feature I want to show you is going back to the problem of how do we analyze the data? How do we make sense out of it? So the people who know our GoVocal platform already know that we have our sense-making module, but something that we recently added to it is that you can also now cross-tabulate demographics to the actual preferences from your community, to really see the diversity of opinions within the community, to see how younger people versus older people might have different preferences, one neighborhood to another, and so on. So it's really with the idea to show the patterns and to come to, more insightful reports in the end. So that's what I'm going to show you next. So I'll put up my platform here. And for this one, so Aline, she already talked a little bit about the project in St. Louis. I'm going to use this one to give you the demo. We're dealing here with about 1,000 ideas about overall priorities for the city. So I think that is just helpful context before I show you all the insights coming out of it. We have about 1,000 ideas from something like 2,000 participants here over different categories, the ones that you see here on the right-hand side, from safety to housing and so on. Now, I'm moving here to the backend to our AI sense making. And before I jump to the auto insights part, let me really briefly kind of show you how our sense making works. What you see here on the left-hand side is that you can tag all the input. So I have about 1,000 ideas. I could tag on things like the topics. I could tag on sentiment, controversy. I could, give an example and just ask it to label all the ideas that are relating to the label that I would like to see, and so on. So there's different ways of actually slicing your data and getting them clustered. So what I see here is public safety, infrastructure, community development, infrastructure repair. So those are all topics coming out of those different ideas. Those are all priorities raised by the community. Now, what I would do next is I could either say, hey, summarize this for me. About 1,000 IDs, it will take a moment. I could try to do that, but let's take something smaller as a data set, and let's look at public safety here, for instance. So what our AI sense making is doing now is it's looking at all those 195 ideas that you see here as I scroll down, and it will give me a summary of all the ideas relating to public safety. What's interesting is that as I get my summary here, and if you read along with me, many respondents, they cite crime and the perception of crime as a primary reason residents and visitors avoid St. Louis, and it's the main barrier to economic growth, business investment, and population retention. So we're talking here about crime. For each of those statements, I can always go back to the original post, and I can always validate actually the statements made by the AI, and so on. I see here people talking about 911 system. As you see here, as soon as I click on it, I get back to the original inputs, and so on. Now, the thing is, here I get an overall sentiment from the community. This is, irrespective of the different demographics. And what we have now added is what we call auto insights. So what you see here is this little carousel that shows patterns. So people who are between 20 and 40 years old, they are much more likely to actually talk about transportation. We see that this is actually a very similar one. They are much more likely to post about public transit, for instance. So I see a couple of patterns here. I'm clicking on Explore, and as soon as I get there, I see a view here with color-coded, a color-code matrix. On the top, I have the year of birth. So I have the different categories from youngsters over older people. And on the left-hand side, I have the different topics, the different priorities being raised by the community. Now, let me maybe start by going first to preferences, to likes, to voting behavior, because I have much more data here. And I immediately see that younger people, they are much more or much less likely to vote in favor of ideas relating to public safety, infrastructure repair. Obviously, very young people, they don't care yet about housing. And whenever you see that check mark here, it means that it's statistically significant, that we have enough data to conclude this compared to the census data, and we know that this is something that we can draw as a conclusion. But on the upside, if we look at the green things here, then we see that public safety, infrastructure, those are topics that the older segment of the population is really worried about. Affordable housing, neighborhood revitalization. So what do youngsters wonder about, or what do they care about? Well, they care about transportation, they care about road and traffic safety, they care about climate, public transit, and so on. So we see pretty clear patterns here, environmental sustainability, that I would like to probably get a little deeper into, because we want to know what they are talking about. When they're talking about transportation, young people, then I would like to know what are they actually saying. They're clearly 169% more likely to post about this. So let's find out what they're actually talking about. And that is what is currently happening here on the right-hand side. So now I'm automatically getting for this segment people between this and that year of birth on the topic of transportation, what are their concerns? And then we see top priorities, the top ideas coming out, public transit improvements, the bus service, and then a breakdown of more specific things, a transit system, BRT must be a specific transit system in St. Louis, safer streets and traffic calming, bike and pedestrian infrastructure, and so on and so forth. I could do, of course, the same for older people. And I'm using just as an example here, the year of birth. I could obviously also look at other things like neighborhoods, the wards, where I would get a very similar overview here. Again, I will click here on like for a moment. And then I could see that actually in some wards, public safety is a concern, whereas in others, it's more about having access to public transit. So it clearly shows, how there's a diversity of preferences and opinions in our community. Now, once we've come to those different conclusions, we can then bring that into a report. So I am now switching here to our report builder, where I've already designed an example and I've added a couple of graphs here on the number of participants, as well as summaries per topic cluster and top 10 most reacted ideas from the community, as you can see here. And then what I would want to do is, now that I have our summary, and let's say the one on infrastructure improvements, and we might want to send this to the department working on this specific topic, then I will just drag in the summary here. I will click on save. I might want to edit this a little bit and then print it, take it out, export it as a PDF, and send it to one of my colleagues. So that is the flow for how we will do the reporting. And that is what I want to show you on Auto Insights. You can do something similar, obviously, for surveys, where you can not only look at the demographics, but you can also cross question by question, survey question by survey question. So I could have one question here, another question on the columns here, and then see how they correlate as well. So that is Auto Insights. I want to show one more new feature, and I'm going to just stay here. Actually, instead of going back to my slides, I'm going to stay here in our platform, and I want to show you our Inspiration Hub. So as Alina's already shared, we work today with about 500 local governments, 25,000 projects. Something that we have started at the end of last year is to create an internal library of all those different projects. And we experimented a little bit with AI, trying to actually give us some sort of quality score. If we look at the qualities of good participation, what are actually good projects, and how do we make sure that those can be bubbled up so that we can identify them as best practices? And so that is what we have brought in product now. It's what we call our Inspiration Hub. Every month you will see a section here per country, depending on the country you're in. So let's assume here we're in the UK. You would then see the top 3 projects being highlighted for you. And this is a rotating selection. So every month you will see new projects. You will see a little comment here from our government success manager, from our participation expert, who says why this was especially such a good project. That's why you see here those comments. And then whenever I would click on those projects, I could actually also read more about, I could have a link to the original project, but I could also see the breakdown of the different phases. You could also use it another way. If I would be interested in climate planning, I might be working on a climate plan, then I could see here all the different projects across different countries relating to climate. I could also do that, by the way, by topic here. So you have a bunch of filters on transport, environment, urban development, and so on. So this is a way to actually find, similar project to yours and see if there are any best practices that you could incorporate in your process design. So that is our Inspiration Hub. Let me just get back to the slides for a moment. Those were the 3 things we wanted to show you today. I think we have a quick poll here as well. We'd love to get a quick feedback from you, which of those 3 features piqued your interest most. So you'll get a chance now to vote on those 3 features. Looks like there's a fairly good mix here as well. We get 65% of our participants who have voted. So if you have a last vote, oh yeah, cool. All right, we see a good mix here between the different features. The most voted one is the Community Monitor, 50%, 40% the Auto Insights, and then 10% on the Inspiration Hub. So that's great to hear. Before we can just take a moment, if you have any questions on the features, feel free to drop them in the Q&A. While you're doing that, I'm just going to wrap this up by also sharing a little more about what we're currently working on. So I want to share a little bit about our vision for the future. And as we think about good engagement, what's going to be next, these are the 3 pillars. So today we looked at the responsive decision-making. The one or the 2 other ones that we're currently working on is this one on inclusive engagement. So as we have shared already, we have noticed that engagement is done in so many different ways. And we are really big believers in blended engagement. In-person engagement is so important. Finding the depth through in-person engagement and then more of the breadth and the volume through digital engagement, I think is a really powerful combination. So Alina already highlighted that we are incorporating handwritten notes, automatically scanning those and importing them. We have now added a module for voice-based participation. So whenever you host a public meeting, an assembly, street interviews, that you can record, get transcript, analyze what's been said, and then import it onto the platform. So that is something we have recently added. So let us know if you're interested in that. We're probably next month gonna also run a webinar on this specifically. And more broadly, we will be working on a more what we call like a unified importer model, where you can import those voice notes, voice transcripts, handwritten notes, email, potentially in the future texting, WhatsApp. So really with the idea to have a central data repository and an input repository from the community. And then the other thing they're working on is streamlining participation and working on better conversations through AI deliberation. We have seen, and I think actually the St. Louis project is a pretty good example, as you get to volumes of about 1,000 responses and inputs, it's really difficult for residents to navigate the conversation. And so we're experimenting with the help of AI to come to position statements and deliberate around those position statements to try to find common ground. So that is also something that is in the pipeline. With that being said, just want to see if there are any questions for us. Alina, I don't know if you've already checked it.
Yes, there's some questions. So I'll start with the ones on the community monitor. So Annie posed a question on plans to be able to edit, change the categories of the community monitor. Right now you can add extra questions, edit the questions. If you would have questions that don't fall under these three categories of quality of life, service delivery, and what was the third one? Now I forgot. They will be
Governance.
Yeah, they will fall under the other category, but indeed there are plans in the future for changing those category. Then Jackie is inquiring about the add-on cost to use the community monitor. It depends on the license that you have at GoVocal, but right now we do have, let's say, a special offer to test this community monitor before the end of the quarter. So do reach out to us, and then we'll be happy to see if there would be an add-on cost or not. Let's see. Then I think there was a question on Auto Insights, Wietse, in the Q&A. I don't know if you've seen it and you want to take
if you can
it.
pull it up for me, I see there's one other question here from Stefan.
Yeah, but or can I first have the Auto Insight question? So the question from Natalia is, how do you get information from population like age, income, etc., to be able to produce those insights? Do they have to make the survey from a personal account that already holds all that information?
Yeah, so often you would ask for that during the registration process. You would ask for a couple of demographics. So that is the most common method. Something we recently added is that you could also ask for that at the end of a survey, because we have seen that, councils, local governments want to keep the barrier low. So if you would add it as a field at the end of your survey as the last screen, then it will get automatically incorporated on the user profile and will be stored that way. But so just to say, short answer, of course, you ask those questions to the residents: where you're living, how old are you, and so on. And then I see here there's a question on, is our platform used by private organizations? We have our focus on working within the public sector, but we do have a couple of organizations that are more membership based, that have a base of or a community to engage. I think that is always the most important. There is like a substantial community to engage. We use it internally with an organization of 50 people, but I would typically advise it for more than 50 people. So if you have a specific use case, Stefan, I'm very happy to discuss it. And on the AI model, we are agnostic about the AI model. We're actually using both different natural language processing techniques. So when you saw like by controversy, by sentiment, by topic modeling, classification, those are specific natural language processing techniques. And then for the summary, we're using generative AI, but we connect with different models, and depending on, because you raise like concerns about data privacy, we can also self-host some of those models and store the data in Europe, assuming that you are obviously asking for that from a European perspective. All right. Unless we have any other questions.
No, there was one person who had their hand raised, but yeah, it's we don't allow people to talk in this webinar, so do just put your question in the chat or reach out to us if you wanna share your question in private.
Yeah. All right. If not, I would definitely, feel free to jump in if you wanna, if you have your hand raised and want to say something. Otherwise, we're gonna wrap up here. And I will just say thank you for joining us today. If you are keen to see the platform in action, feel free to reach out to us. I've added Aline's email here, so feel free to drop her a quick line. We're happy to show you the full platform. And in case that you're a client and you're keen to get some of those functionalities activated, feel free to contact your government success manager, and we would be very happy to work with you on that. With that being said, thanks so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your day, and then hope to see you soon. Bye.
Bye, thank you.